Knysna is situated 34 degrees south of the equator, and today we're in the heart of Knysna, in the waterfront, and we are heading to a restaurant that's named after the exact location of this small coastal town. Let's go find out more.
Situated right in the harbour, this Delhi Bar is always a buzz. Oysters and bubbly seem to be the natural choice here, and the owner, Charles van Tonder, happily presented Liesel with a masterclass.
Charles, what is the difference between wild and cultivated oysters, and where do they originate from?
The cultivated oyster comes from the Sea of Japan, and it's the oyster that's basically grown all over the world. The wild oyster occurs naturally on our coast.
In your opinion, which are better, wild or cultivated oysters?
There is no real better one. They have different applications. The difference between lamb and venison, they're both meat. In this case, they're both oysters. The one has a very strong sea taste, the wild oyster, while the cultivated oyster has a far more genteel, uniform taste.
Now, when I purchase oysters, how do I know they're fresh, and what do I look for?
First thing you make sure is that they are closed. In other words, if you see an oyster that's open, you know it's died, don't go near it. The second thing you can do is, once you've opened the oyster, is put a little drop of lemon juice on the oyster, and if it contracts spontaneously, you know that it's fresh.
How do I store them, and for how long can I keep them?
The best way to store an oyster is in the fridge, at the normal fridge temperature. You can probably keep them between 5 and 7 days. Obviously, if you've shucked them freshly, then my suggestion is you eat them immediately.
And what is the best way to enjoy an oyster?
There are two ways. If you're doing cultivated oysters, a little bit of black pepper, lemon, and a hint of Tabasco. When it comes to wild oyster, I wouldn't go beyond the lemon and the black pepper.
Are there any no-nos when it comes to eating oysters?
There's one huge no-no, and that is eating oysters that have been shucked the previous day. The best oyster is the oyster that's been opened and has been eaten within 10 minutes. That's the way that you must try and eat your oysters, even if you have to teach yourself how to open. And the great thing is you must get the right oyster knife as well. There are two very important things when you're opening an oyster. The first one is that you never try and open an oyster in your hand. In other words, get a nice board, hold the oyster down firmly, and then remember there's no little magic wedge. You actually have to go through the oyster shell and get into it. You'll have so much fun, because opening oysters is part of the fun of eating oysters.
The 18th century gentleman Casanova is said to have eaten 50 oysters for breakfast every morning. The Pick n Pay Knysna Oyster Festival is hailed as the 10 best days of winter.